For everyone in the audience, Aarushi has been a writer for many, many years. She's also led content teams. She's worked with some of the best brands like Weed, Zapier, and Branch as well, and that did a lot of work. I remember early on, Aarushi was also part of Vidipen as one of the writers. So that sort of brings us back to having this conversation in a more aligned way as well. There's so much that Aarushi has grown in the last couple of years. It's been what, more than 5 years, Aarushi, that you've been writing?
Yeah, almost six. Almost
6 years
6.
now. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, I think there's so many insights. I've read some of your articles, and there's so many insights. There's so much structure. And, when you look at some of those articles, you by default, you understand, hey, it's just not some random work. There's a lot of process that has gone behind creating that content. And we're going to talk about that process today in this masterclass as well, right? Superb. So we have the polls out there. A lot of people are, I think majority of our audience today is writers, right? Which means that we have a very well aligned audience with us. Great. So, Arushi, we are around 50 people joining the
Mhm.
webinar already. We'll have a lot more coming in. Let's get started, in the discussion as well.
Sure. So thank you so much for having me here and welcome everybody to the SaaS Writing Masterclass. I'm so excited to share everything that I have for you today. And I think it's an incredible time to be a writer, especially a SaaS writer, given the opportunities out there. You've got LinkedIn where you can actually reach out to the head of a content or, even the co-founder of a company and write for them. Or you could build your own consultancy firm like I did and work with some really cool brands and drive incredible impact for your clients. Now, before we dive in, I want to give a quick brief about myself. So, I started my writing career back in 2017 when I was freelancing for a couple of local brands in my city and I was working as a copywriter. So, it was nothing major. I was a college student, I was in third year, I guess. And then I went to join my 9 to 5 corporate organization, Accenture. And that's when I actually started working for Witty Pen as a freelance writer. So when they say, life really comes full circle, I think you should believe it because from writing for Witty Pen to now hosting a masterclass with the team is such a grateful experience in itself. And also, Witty has played this, huge monumental role in my success story. And after, actually working with Witty for 6 months, I was able to quit my 9 to 5 because I was getting consistent work from the team, and also it helped me in a lot of things and honing my craft better, understanding how clients work, how you work with editors, and what are the editorial guidelines. So all the nitty gritties, I think Wittypen really kickstarted my writing career, and I'm really grateful for all of that. So without wasting a lot of time, now let's dive into the good part. Now, in this masterclass, you'll learn what does a SaaS mean, like what is all the craze about SaaS writing, and why are there so many SaaS companies coming up, and also there's this immense demand for content in SaaS teams. So what does actually SaaS mean? What does the term itself mean, and how is SaaS writing different from other forms of writing? So I want to share my own process that I use to create content for SaaS companies. I'm also going to be taking you through the entire roadmap, which will help you understand what it takes to write for SaaS companies and how to take an article from its inception stage where the writer is supposed to conduct extensive research to the final publishing stage with minimal edits. Now let's get on to the first slide. What is SaaS? Now, it's very likely that you're already using SaaS or software as a service on a daily basis as a consumer or as a part of your business. Now, SaaS is one of the three main categories of cloud computing models. So, the idea is it delivers a service or an application via subscription plans, just like Netflix. Let's look at some of the famous SaaS companies that you've probably heard of. For example, Salesforce, Dropbox, Slack, Zoom, HubSpot. I think most of you are very well aware of Zoom, Slack, and Netflix. And see, so SaaS companies, they have these customers spread out across B2B and B2C. But we're going to focus only on the writing part for today. Now, customers of SaaS companies could be people like you and I, or executives who are decision makers for their own companies, looking at RevOps tools or marketing CRM tools or marketing automation. But more or less, you're more familiar with SaaS than you realize. And when it comes to SaaS writing, I think there are a lot of differentiators here that make it truly unique and set it apart. The main distinction between SaaS content writing and other forms of writing lies in the content's objective itself. So SaaS writing is, think of it like this. It is geared towards gradually turning readers into, warmer leads, into paying customers. Whereas when you write for other fields or, other companies that are not SaaS, you often, as a writer, try to create content that educates, entertains, or informs readers about a particular subject or topic. But in SaaS, the ultimate goal is to drive conversions and turn your, passive readers, spectators who are just casually scrolling, grab their attention, get them familiar with your product or service, and eventually lead them to a paid conversion. Now, I've divided this into 5 different elements. Like, how is SaaS writing for SaaS companies different from others? Now, writing content for SaaS companies is closely linked to their broader business objectives, and it plays a very crucial role in the content marketing pipeline itself. It helps drive brand awareness for their products, generates leads, and increases conversions, which is what I said earlier. Now, it's also used as a tool to educate prospective users about your SaaS product's features and how it can address those issues effectively. So you need to, really delve into what are the challenges that your product is trying to solve, and where does it fit in? How does it solve those challenges? Now, unlike other categories that use creative writing, SaaS content writing includes a lot of data points and references to substantiate the claims regarding performance and effectiveness. So, for example, putting out generic statements like, hey, everybody struggles with writing, or everybody struggles with video content creation. When you're writing for a SaaS client, you need to back up almost every statement that you say with very, very hardcore data points or references. There is no such definitive, universal statement like everybody struggles with this. No, your SaaS client has a very particular target audience, and they struggle with a particular challenge, and they have certain objections. So your entire understanding of the pain points has to be very, very clear. And whenever you write something, it has to be backed up with a lot of data and references. Now, let's quickly dive into each one of these differences. The first thing is the audience. Now, depending on the vertical you're writing in, for example, let's say a video editing tool is your client. Now, their ideal customer profile would be, a specific set of people such as video editors, content creators, freelancers, solopreneurs, or entrepreneurs, course creators, or educators. You're not writing for everybody, and there's a specific target audience you have to keep in mind as you research and you craft your narrative. I'll get into the narrative part a little bit later in the presentation. For now, let's dive into the second difference, which is action. Now, what kind of action do you want your audience to take? In SaaS, I said the ultimate goal is to drive paid conversions, and you'll also see that there are a lot of sub goals that lead to that paid conversions. It's not like you write an article and that straight away drives paid conversions. If it does that, that's, I think, incredible. But I think there are a lot of sub goals and sub KPIs that you have to measure before conversions. So think of, organic reach. Like when you publish an article, how many views did it drive to your client's website? Or what was the CTR like? What was the click-through rate like? How many people clicked on the book demo call to action button? So all of these things are, sub actions and primary and secondary actions in SaaS. And regardless of the content asset you will create, be it a blog post, a case study, an ebook, a social post, every single content asset has its own role to play in the entire marketing pipeline. And every single asset is aimed at nurturing prospects, building credibility, and building that sense of familiarity and trust through content, and then finally driving them in with a paid subscription. And the important thing to note here is because I'm talking a lot about driving conversions, and I'll tell you why a little bit later on more. That you can't just add, call to action buttons in your content throughout and say, buy now, buy now. You've got to build that trust and credibility, because SaaS consumers are very smart. Today, when we go out, for example, if I go out and when I was starting my newsletter, I was looking at, different email service providers out there. I was comparing a lot of things. I was comparing pricing plans. I was comparing what I got with, the number of features that I was getting with a certain tool and what was their competitor offering me. And ultimately, with all of my research around their blog posts, their video assets, their social assets, and also I ended up with ConvertKit. So, and I also had the sense of familiarity because I follow ConvertKit CEO and I follow their team. I really love how they do content. So they have built that sense of familiarity with me, and I am also a part of the target audience. So I already had a bias towards them. It was sort of easier for me to make a choice, right? So that is the action that you want to, that is the impact that you want to create with your content for SaaS companies. Now, the next differentiator is language. Again, based on who your audience is, you need to adapt to their language, their terminology, and then create content. For example, when I was working with one of my clients, I realized, they had this landing page of their product, which they called marketing automation tool, right? Which sounds very generic. Now, when I was working on their case studies, because we thought that, hey, let's produce some bottom of funnel content assets, and let's be very bullish on driving conversions for our product, because it was a bootstrapped early stage growth startup, and we wanted that, no, our priority was to get revenue in and pipeline coming in as soon as possible. So let's focus on case studies. Now, when I was preparing for those case studies, I sat down with their customer success team, which was essentially also their sales team, because it was a very lean team and very lean and a very, very powerhouse kind of a team. And I also got to chat with a lot of customers, and they referred to the same product as marketing CRM. Now, on the surface, if you see, marketing automation and CRM are very, very closely linked, but marketing automation is a very broad category in itself. It's the language in which our customers were looking up, us up for. We were not there when they were searching marketing CRM. I don't know. We were on the second or third page, but for marketing automation, we were on the first page. I think around on third or fourth position. But we wanted to, climb up to the first one. So we tweaked the landing page, and we actually got, I think after a month and a half, we actually ranked that landing page, and we started getting in very good consistent inbound leads. So even though we had conducted all the SEO keyword research, and the founders had been working in that same space, marketing automation space, for almost, I would say, 7 to 8 years, they had a good understanding of the market. But then uh, the assumptions that they had were sort of incorrect, because when you sit with your audience, that's when you understand the kind of language that they use, the tone of voice that they have, the kind of content they engage with. So these small things can make a very huge difference, and they make a very, very direct impact on the bottom line, which is your sales, which is the conversions and the final outcomes. Now, the next differentiator, I think, is the level of research required. Now, I think a SaaS writer is primarily a journalist who, needs to uncover the story behind a brand and its customers, and you need to understand the pain points of the audience very thoroughly. You need to put yourself into the other person's shoes, dive into the trenches, and imagine what they are feeling, and sort of relate to it, so that you create better content. And you need to have a very zoomed in perspective of what your audience is struggling with. If they have come up on your blog, if they've landed on your blog, what are they looking for? What is their desire? What is the attitude of, what is the aspirations, or what are the objections that they have? And how you have to very strategically place your product that fits in their journey. So I think the level of research required for SaaS writing is just immense. But then once you get a better understanding of it, and a better understanding of your customers, it gets easier with time and with every content asset that you create. Because ultimately, you need to persuade the target audience and present content in a way that it resonates with them. It speaks to them directly, doesn't sound salesy, and it addresses their objections very head on. So if they have a doubt about your tool, you address it in your content very directly. If they're confused about whether to choose between you or their competitor, they get convinced by enough data points, and you have added so many testimonials, customer success stories, that the reader feels confident that I can put my trust and my money and my resources into this product because I have that trust on them. And content is that bridge that uh, you know uh, bridges the disconnect between a customer and a product. And the last differentiator is how leads are measured in SaaS. Now, if you probably have heard about a lot of KPIs that says, SEO ranking and SERPs and organic reach and CTR and XYZ, but I'm going to talk about a very, very core KPI that is measured in SaaS, which is called MQLs. Now, MQLs is marketing qualified leads, and I'll give you a very brief definition. So, marketing qualified lead is a potential customer that has been reviewed by the marketing team and it satisfies the criteria necessary to be passed along to the sales team. For example, if we talk about, let's say, video editing, throughout the presentation, I'm going to keep on giving you examples so that it's easier for you to understand and imagine and, paint like a visual picture in your head of what I'm talking about and how, to just basically visualize it. Now, a very simple example is, let's say there's a video editing software. Again, we discussed the ICP a little bit, a little moments back. And do you think that the ICP for an MQL for a video editing platform would be a video creator, or somebody who's, let's say, who's a doctor and who doesn't have anything to do with video creation? If that doctor has like a YouTube channel, well and good. He or she is also part of our ICP, but our MQLs. But MQLs are very, very narrow and they align very closely. They're very interlinked with your ICP, and uh, they are the measure of how well your content is performing. Now, the stronger your writing is, the more MQLs your content has the potential to drive or influence. I'm not saying there's a direct uh, impact, because a B2B buyer, there was a research study, in case you didn't know, that said that it takes 27 touch points for a customer to actually try out a product. So it's not that somebody is going to come onto your blog, read your blog end to end, because all of us know this, everybody skims blogs through and through. So it's not that they're going to come onto a blog and they just dive into a paid subscription. They will have multiple touch points, but then if you think about content across the spectrum, from social media posts to case studies to blogs to research reports to YouTube, the stronger your writing is, the more MQLs your content has the potential to drive or influence. And the more MQLs for your SaaS client, the more conversions and the more happy they are to work with you. So it's a very important metric, and you need to understand how your content, drives value for your client. Because if you want to grow as a freelance writer, be it with an agency or go independent as a consultant or work in a job, you need to be very sure of what you bring to the table, and MQLs is a very, very important metric in communicating that value. And in fact, you didn't know, content marketing actually generates over 3 times many leads as outbound marketing, and it costs 62% less. So clearly, the ROI, return on investment, in content marketing is incredible, and this is why more companies are producing stronger content. Now, let's get into the hottest SaaS verticals niche for writers in 2024. Now, there are some of these, tools that have just, created a storm on LinkedIn and in the SaaS space, and some of them are AI tools like Jasper, Copy.ai. Then there's marketing automation. You think of Recruiter Flow, ConvertKit, Active Campaign. Then there's social media management. So I think the best example that comes to my head is Buffer. Then you have CMS, content management system, where there's Thinkific, there's Kajabi, which are the go-to platforms for educators and course creators. You have email and SMS marketing software, which is, again, I would say, ConvertKit. Then you have design software. Think of Canva. Canva is the best example for that. Then we have data analytics and tracking, and then we have RevOps. So these are the niche and verticals you that have like a lot of potential going for 2024, and that are hiring very quickly for writers, marketers, and that are expanding and actually creating categories in themselves. So if you want to take a screenshot of this, feel free to do that. I'm just going to move to the next screen here.
I
Okay.
did the first thing that, right? The screenshot of this slide.
Sorry?
I took the, I mean, when you shared that slide, I just took a screenshot because it's so interesting. All these line of businesses are very interesting, and there's so much
Yeah,
because one of the other things is also that if you think of it, majority of these tools have a very small ACV, and then they
yeah,
depend on SEO and content as one of their key channels for growth.
yeah,
So it's very obvious that these businesses are looking for content,
yeah.
and whichever channel you go, if you want to, as a writer, if you go pitch directly or work with us, would depend. If you build an interesting, if you build enough expertise around these niches, it just becomes much easy to grow in this as well. So kudos to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many verticals out there because SaaS is such a broad industry in itself. I think a lot of people get confused and they just write like SaaS writer. When you're saying you're a SaaS writer, you're casting a very wide net, which is incredibly well if you
Yes.
can handle all of that and if you can develop like subject matter expertise into different verticals.
Yeah.
But if you want to really scale fast as a writer, and if you want to really be a subject matter expert, that like let's say if you imagine yourself after 3 years, 5 years, people come to you for your subject expert opinion. That, okay,
Absolutely.
let's hear from this person what he or she has to say. Then you need to dive into certain niches, and these are the ones that I've seen working immensely well, and also their marketing production system is scaling up so quickly. So there's a
Absolutely.
lot of opportunities for writers, SaaS writers, to actually work in these
Also,
niches and
one of
verticals.
the things I've seen, Arushi, here is that a lot of writers, when I talk to, they feel that writing for SaaS needs you to be very strong in technology. Now, I feel that's not really necessary. If you think about it, right? When you talk about ConvertKit, it's an email marketing software. When you talk about Buffer, it's a social media marketing tool. If you talk about Canva, it's a design tool, right? So knowing about these categories, if you're writing about, say, any HR, MS sort of softwares, it's an HR as a process. So these brands essentially talk about their end users' problems, which are usual business problems. Right? So even if you are not really very hardcore technology specialist as a writer, there's still so much scope in writing for these categories. You just have to be a little bit tech savvy so you can use the software. But knowing about business in some of these niches is very
Yeah.
important here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And SaaS, like I showed some examples, Netflix. I think who on planet Earth does not have like a Netflix subscription or doesn't watch Netflix? Because, and when you think of it, like SaaS uh, products and brands can be as simple as you can imagine, and they can be as complex. For example, I write for a video editing tool, which is very easy to use, very light, very easy breezy. And for me, it's very easy to put myself into the customer's shoes and understand the pain points I would have, into, let's say, creating a YouTube short, right? I would
Absolutely.
not know how to upload things, and this is where I write a blog post. But I've also worked as the content lead for a very, very complex MarTech enterprise brand, which is also SaaS.
Yeah.
So it depends on the kind of clients you work with. But yeah, like you said, you don't need to have any academic, degree per se to write for SaaS clients. It's just that you need to understand the brand and the customers. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I go back into mute. I should take it up from
Yeah.
here. We already have a few quick Q&As coming in.
Oh
Folks,
God.
please keep adding here.
I think this is going to extend. it's
I'll
it's
pick
what,
down at the end of
4:30.
the session. Just a reminder for folks to keep adding Q&As on the
Yeah.
window, and we'll pick it up at the end of the session as well.
Okay, cool.
Over to you.
Cool. Okay, now back to this. Now, what are the different content assets you can create? Now, a lot of people have this misconception that you can only create blog posts or case studies in, as a content writer, and it's probably the job of a copywriter to write social media post or as such. But there is no such thing like that. Writing is not limited in SaaS to one single asset, and you can create multiple content assets. But what, again, I would say, like Anshul and I said, in terms of niche, right, that you could either write for everybody, or you could write for one or two or three verticals specifically under SaaS and become a subject matter expert in that, because that will also help you create content faster, research faster. So the velocity of content production will also get very faster. So in terms of the different content assets, also I would say specialize in one or two, because you know at the end of the day this gives you a better understanding of the format, the flow, transitions, and makes a specific research routine familiar to you. For example, if you are writing blog posts and you need to interview subject matter experts, you might as well just interview a handful of 4 to 5 people. But when you're writing a research report for a client, you might have to interview 100 C-level executives. So if you keep on switching between research reports, case studies, and blogs, they are still very close knit. But if you, let's say, switch between research reports and social media posts, I think that's like two opposite end content assets, because I specialize in research reports and long form content. Think of it like this: do you want to specialize in long form content or short form content? Because I have a very hard time uh, writing social media posts even for my own profile, because I'm so used to the format, flow, and transitions of long form content. It's very easy for me to write a 4,000 word guide, but it's very difficult for me to write like 40 words social media, quick snappy posts. So I have narrowed it down to long form content. So I suggest that if you do that, it'll be uh, much better, and it'll also be very faster. Now, let's actually get into the good meaty section of the presentation, which is how to actually write a great blog post for a SaaS audience. Okay, so the first step is research. Actually, just hold on a second. I'm just gonna this some issue. Can you still see my screen, everybody?
Yes, Arushi, we can see your screen.
Okay, great. Sorry for the interruption. Now, the first step is research. So I like to divide it into four buckets: brand, audience, competitors, and content. When I say brand, you need three major research, there are three major research phases. First, you need to understand the product very well. For that, you can either go through, their YouTube About Us page or their product demo. If that product demo is not present on your client's website, feel free to ask them, because more often than not they're more happy to know that you want to really understand their product, instead of guessing and making assumptions about what their product does, what their service does. Just ask your client directly, or if you're working with an editor, just ask them that, hey, is there any way I can see the product demo so I understand the product better and I can write better for you. Then comes the USP, which is the unique selling proposition, which is the value proposition of the product. Now, how is it different from other competitors? For example, if you think about ConvertKit and let's say ActiveCampaign, how is ConvertKit different than ActiveCampaign? Is it better? What is the target audience? And what are the challenges that it solves? I'll just give you a very quick, caveat here, that ActiveCampaign is a much more advanced and complex tool. So it might be well suited for organizations, enterprise marketing teams with like 100 people, 200 people, I know. But ConvertKit is absolutely perfect for smaller teams, for content creators, for people who run their own newsletters like me, or like even maybe, some of you. So just the usability and the value proposition, you need to understand what your client's product value proposition is, what challenges it solves, and what are the specific features and use cases for it. Next is the audience research. Now, this is where I personally spend most time. The number one is audience, and next is like brand, and then comes competitors and content for me, but it could be different for you. So, in audience, you need to get closer to the buyer persona and demographics, user pain points, motivations, and goals. Psychographics. Psychographics means the attitude, the aspirations that your audience has. Then comes feature benefit pairing, which I'll discuss a little bit more later on. So for audience research, you could use a tool called SparkToro. In SparkToro, I think it's not a free tool, but you can run some, I think 5 to 10 research questions every month, where you can actually dive into what are the kind of podcasts your audience listens to, what are the social profiles they engage with, what is the content that they engage with. So you get a very closer look and a very zoomed in picture of what who your audience is, what they like, what they don't like, what are their objections, what are they struggling with. For audience, you could also read competitors, your competitor content assets. You could also go and ask the internal success sales and A's that, how, what are the number, like, what are the top three priorities of our customers when they come to us, when they're just signing up. What are the one to three things, the goals that they want to achieve with our product. Let's say, again, let's take an example of ConvertKit. So I would go to the success and sales team of ConvertKit, and I would ask them, like, whenever content creators come to us, why do they come? Is it ease of use? Is it because we're more affordable? Is it because we have this amazing, XYZ specific feature that will help them grow their newsletter faster? So just get into the aspirations, motivations, and also understand the objections that they have. Like, what are the what are the things that could stop them from working for you, working with you? You know, let's say if ConvertKit was a little bit complex to use and they didn't have, like, a drag and drop builder, and they wanted me, their customer, to write an HTML code to send a newsletter, I wouldn't be their customer then, because I want a very quick and easy plug and play solution that I write the content, hit send, and it's all done. So you also need to understand the objections that they have, the questions they have in their minds. Then comes the competitor part. Competitor part, the best way to do this that I found over the years is that you go onto Google, you just write, let's say, ConvertKit, then alternatives, and or ConvertKit review, ConvertKit pros and cons. Then you will get these websites like Capterra, you'll get G2, you'll get Trust Radius. You'll also get very, very, comprehensive videos on YouTube's where YouTubers are actually trying out some of the products, and they're saying, oh, ConvertKit is easy to use, or it's not, or this is the pro, this is the con. And you'll also get these massive guides where people review and compare different products. So they will compare one product, let's say ConvertKit, with other ESPs. So this is where you'll get a better look at how they fare product wise. Another alternative is you could go to the competitor's website, and if there is a demo present there, you'll actually take their demo and see how it fares against your own client's product, right? So that's a very sneaky way, but I think it's fair. And then you run a functional analysis. For example, I do this a lot for my clients. Example, if I'm writing for, a video editing software, I would go onto other video editing software websites. I would just sign up for the free plan. I would actually try to edit like a 10-20 second video, and I would see how easy it is, how difficult it is, what are the features they're missing. So this functional analysis that you do, it's very hands-on. It gives you very first-hand perspective as a customer, and you also get to know the product a lot better by doing this. And then you can make a content analysis, look at the blogs that your competitor is producing. How in-depth are they? Do they have subject matter opinions? Are they bottom funnel? Are they, comprehensive guides? What is the kind of tone that they use? What is the kind of language that they use? So that's when you do a content analysis. Now the last part is the content research itself. This means that now you've done all the research theoretically. Now you have all the knowledge that you could gather online and from your client and from your subject matter experts, from your editors and everybody. Now comes the content part, which is one-on-one with your client or your editor. What is the funnel stage of the article that you're writing in? Is it top of funnel? Is it like completely informative and you're writing this massive guide? Let's say I wrote a massive guide, it was, I think, 5,000, 6,000 words a couple of months back. It was how to choose the best equipment for YouTube beginners or something of that sort. And it was a very exhaustive guide. I spent 2 weeks just researching around that topic, and then took another week to write that topic because it was that comprehensive. So that is top of funnel. There, the goal is not to drive in customers and paid signups and demo requests and whatnot. There, the only goal is to educate the reader, to inspire them to be YouTube creators in this case, for example, right? So we've already covered funnel stage and goals. Now the target audience, we've already talked a lot about target audience, so I'm not going to bore you with it again. Then we have action purpose, and then we have language. Again, what is the kind of language that you want to use. If you are writing for let's say the target audience is content creators, you can be casual, you can be funny, you can add gifs, you can add memes, you can obviously according to the editorial standards, you have the space to do all of these things, casual but informative. But let's say your target audience is senior performance marketers at B2B SaaS MarTech companies. That sounds very complex. But so you're not going to be, adding GIFs and memes there. You have to be a little bit more formal, conversational, but a little bit more authoritative and more conversational. So that is the difference, and that is how you need to understand how you need to write the content. Now, there are two different types of research. One is observational research, another is active data collection. Observational research is your understanding and gathering data from what is already present. For example, customer success stories on your products, on your client's website, existing content assets that they may have. Maybe they have they hosted some webinars, they had some podcasts, YouTube videos, social media posts, all of that. Their feature landing pages, podcasts, social media channels, research reports, then scholarly articles, they have some testimonials on their website, all of that. This is all observational. You're not actually going out and chatting with anybody one on one, or trying to extract some data or insights from a report. It's the information is already there. You're going just out there, collating it, collecting it, and then you're going to structure it later on. The next part is active data collection, where you host one-on-one interviews with subject matter experts, which could be with your internal stakeholders, which means your client's team, or external stakeholders, where you interview other people in the same industry. For example, if I were to write an article about video editing, and I wanted to interview external stakeholders, I think the best people to interview here would be content creators who are already doing YouTube, you know, who have already, I'm not talking like, millions and like 20 million, 30 million people, because it's going to be very tough to reach those content creators. But you can always take your chances with people who are still in the growing phase, but they represent a certain milestone for your own audience. Your audience might be at just 100 subscribers, but you can obviously go out and connect with somebody who has 10K, 20K subscribers. So it's not about lofty goals. It's not about reaching out to people who are who come with billions and millions of followers and whatnot in this case. So one-on-one interviews. If your client is comfortable, ask them for internal decks. Ask them if they have a use case repository where you can understand how which feature comes with what use cases, and how you can connect those two in your content, how you can bring that value in your content. Then again, the 3S: sales, success, and support. If your client allows it, if your editor, agency, whatsoever allows it, or you can also tell your editor, you can submit a certain set of questions to your editor and tell them, hey, could you please forward this to the client and ask them, because I think getting the answer to these questions is incredibly important, and it will take the level of our article to uh, something really incredible, that is very unique, comes with original perspective, and it'll outrank the competitors like right then and there when it's published within a week or two. So you can also ask your editor with that. Next is sourcing quotes from external stakeholders. Now, again, I already talked about content creators and interviewing, other subject matters. Now, there are sites like Hero or Help a B2B writer, where you can submit a request, where you can submit your questions, and people on the portal will see your questions, answer them. But make sure that these are not AI generated answers, because a lot of people with ChatGPT coming in, everybody, in fact, even on LinkedIn, it's crazy how people are using AI to leave comments, and they're not actually engaging in conversations like a human. So make sure you vet these answers from Hero and Help a B2B writer. I would actually suggest you do some cold outreach, figure out a list of 10, 10 subject matter experts you want to interview, and go after them, instead of, submitting a request and then going through all these answers to figure out what's AI written, what's coming from an actual human. And the next is building a content repository. Now, this is where things get a little bit easier. I know it sounds so much, and I know it sounds so comprehensive right now. It's a little bit scary sometimes, but I have done this for the longest time. Now, if you look at my portfolio, I've been freelancing for 6 years now. I don't have 20 brands under my name. I have hardly, I think maybe 10 is the max, because I never worked with more than 3 to 4 clients at a time. I don't run an agency, so I don't outsource my work. I'm the only person who's doing the sales, marketing, accounting, writing, editing, all of it. So, and why I chose this is because, and I was also able to earn more with this because I developed my, subject matter expertise over time in certain niches. It also gave me that sense of security from a client perspective, from an income perspective, and it also helped me build these massive content repositories that my clients use till date, even when I've left them. And these content repositories are active. They serve as a single source of truth for the writers and editors. So what I still do is, when I build a content repository. So let's say I'm working with a client for, I've written 2, 3 articles. Now I have to go out every time, research every single thing. Over time, you'll realize that there are some stats that remain the same. There are some facts that will always remain the same throughout, while you're writing for the client. Their features are going to remain the same, more or less. Their main product is going to remain more or less the same. They might have product upgrades, but they're not going to overhaul their entire thing. They're going to you know add add-ons, right? So build a content repository which has this feature benefit pairing thing, which has use cases, which has features, which has all of the static things, right? And then, instead of going out and every time doing this observational research, active data collection, you can actually go into your content repository, your own content repository, dive into it, pick out the relevant stuff, and then get into the draft part. Now, I know that finding the right subject matters to interview is sometimes very challenging, and it's also very scary. For example, I'm an introvert, and I had so much of struggle reaching out to people because I was so scared. What if they say no? What if I don't find the right person? Or what if my client says no? And eventually I figured out a system. For example, the first thing I did was, I took the consent from my client, that are you willing to have external quotes from people who do not work in your company but are industry leaders in the same space that we're working in? Are you willing to do that? If I got a yes, I moved on to the sourcing part. I went on to LinkedIn. I asked my other freelance writer friends, marketers. I reached out to my own network, and I did all of that's written here, to find the right SMEs to interview. So if you feel like, please take a screenshot of this. This is actually taken out of from one of the editions of my newsletter that I sent, I think, a couple of months back. So feel free to take a screenshot. I'm just going to wait a second here. Okay, cool. The next is, what kind of questions you should ask your SMEs in interviews. I know it's lovely to think that you can ask like 20 questions to this one person, and you can get all their information, all their tactical advice and the strategy, and then put them all into this one draft, and it'll be amazing. But let me tell you, the more questions you ask, the more quality of the answers will decrease, because you're asking the other person to make big jumps in their mind from one topic to another, to another, to another. Imagine yourself, would if I ask you, can you talk about content writing, and then I say, okay, what is your research process, what is your editing process? And then on the other hand, if I ask you, oh, what do you do? Oh, okay, you do SaaS writing. Okay, so what about marketing, and what about sales? Okay, and this, that, and so I think if you make the your guest take mental jumps into 10 different things, you're going to confuse them, and you're not going to get good answers. So just stick to like 4 to 5 questions. Just have 1 to 2 main challenges, topics you want to ask your guest, and then segue into different questions. So here are some of the questions that are very short, very sweet, that you could ask your clients. This is again another taken from one of the editions of my newsletter. Now feel free to take a screenshot, please. Now, okay. But what if there's no reference content at all? I know it's tough to imagine, but there are a lot of brands, especially after AI coming up, that are, uh, creating categories in themselves. If you've heard about Drift, if you've heard about Spark Toro, They have revolutionized their own space. They're actually the ones who started their own category, which is very unique. Now, what if you get a client like that? What if you're working for a very early growth stage startup that has just started, that has this, very unique idea, and that there is very less information about it, and there is no space for you to do observational research. There are no industry leaders as such in the market right now because it's a very new category, very new space. What do you do then? You get into internal stakeholders. You conduct internal interviews with C-level folks and the product team. Speak to the C-level folks and sales team directly, because if it's a bootstrap startup, trust me, chances are there is one person handling multiple things. I was working with an early growth stage startup, I think last year, and one of their co-founders was doing marketing and sales, as was also, like the co-founder of the company. There, one person was doing sales success and support. So, like, you'll have one person doing multiple things in small startups. So it's easier to, get a hold of them and get in touch with them, and understand what their vision is and how they want to present and build their content over time. You can also look at their other existing content assets. They might not have like tens of customer success stories on their page. They might not have, a lot of content on their website, but they might have pitch decks, they might have slide decks, they might have a lot of product information inside. So grab that. Again, create a content ops repository with all the info you gather, because trust me, once you start building it, it'll be much easier and faster for you to create content. Your edits will reduce. You'll not have that back and forth with your editor. The client will love your work because they'll know you understand their product, you understand their audience very clearly. So this will always help, always. Now, the second step is create a brief. Now, most of the times, if you're working as a writer, you will have an editor, you will have somebody who's doing the hand-holding part for the brief, stage. But let's say if you're the one who's creating a brief, now how do you do that? First step is you collate all your research. Now, there were times that, I was given an article that, hey, the word count for this is 2,200 words, but my research overshot to 4,000 words itself. So it used to get so challenging at times to just narrow that down. So what, over time, I obviously, got a better understanding of what resources I should trust, and that's where a content ops repository helped. But yeah, so fact check your data, quotes, and SME backgrounds. If you're writing about YouTube equipment, you don't want to take, add insights about how much YouTubers make, or how to make your reels go viral, because that's not the topic. The topic is how to choose the best equipment for YouTube out there. So you've got to stick to, gears. You've got to stick to quotes that have details around camera, around technical specifications, shooting modes, all of that. Format your briefs with resource links. This is very important because, as I said in the very beginning, when you're writing for SaaS, you need to have a lot of data points to back up and substantiate your claim, right? And a lot of times what happens is, when you're researching, you just copy paste a data point in your doc, and then you forget where it's from. So it's a very uh, silly mistake, but I think I have done this more times than I can count. So what I do now is, if I find a very interesting stat, I just copy paste it in my research doc, and then I add a nice little resource link that says original link here, so that when and if I decide to add it, or if the writer decides to add it, they know, and if they want, they can read the full on report of that, where, like, what is the context of the data point. So if you want to go back, let's say you did a research today, and after 2 days, if you sit down to write the draft, you forgot where it came from, you can actually go back and understand the context, that, oh, this was written like this because of this. And then, of course, add additional information such as internal links, external links, design directional cues. Now, this is a content brief template that I have prepared for you all. You can again take a screenshot. I'm actually going to add a link. I'll actually do it towards the end because I'm having some issue with screen
Well,
sharing. I don't know what.
we'll share this link as a part of the email that we send across after
Oh, yeah.
the so we'll put it there.
Yeah, that will be cool.
All the links, all the tools, all the resources, we're gonna put it in the email or post a webinar. So please look out for that.
Okay, cool. Now, step three is write the first ugly draft. I know that every writer wants to, create this poetic first draft where it's all beautiful, where it's all incredibly engaging, and it addresses your customers' objections very head on, and it has all the CTs in the right place. But that's not the case most times. Your first draft is going to be ugly, and it's okay because it's still with you. It hasn't gone to the editor or your client. Now, the first step is that you craft a narrative and a spiky point of view. For example, what is a spiky point of view anyway? For example, if everybody is saying that, for example, if you go to LinkedIn, there's this general advice that says you have to post 5 times a week, you have to leave at least 10 comments on bigger profiles to get engagement on your profile. And you need to be consistent and be like very, very active, actively present on the platform if you want to engage and if you want to drive leads, inbound leads from there. My spiky POV on this is that you only need two good posts, two good high quality posts every week, and you can still drive the same amount of inbound leads and rather much better, more qualified leads, because you're not, as a creator, then you're not, your focus is not on creating 5 posts. Your focus is on creating two absolute gems per week, and that's doable. That is something that you can keep up consistently with. That's my spiky POV. So I have, when you're writing an article for your client, what is your spiky POV, and also make sure that it aligns with the consent. It sort of aligns with a fact. It's not just a bias, it's not just coming out of an emotional place, it's coming out of from your own experience and what you've researched around. What is the research saying from, let's say, Gartner, from Forrester? What is the research saying there? What are the top industry leaders or subject matter experts saying there? Is there any spiky POV there? Can you craft a narrative out of there? Good. Do that. The first step is that. Second, design a compelling hook based on your target audience. Now, your target audience does not have, they do not read word to word to sentence to sentence. They just scroll through blog post. They have a very, everybody, as humans, I think, with short form content, our attention span has become very low. So if I hop onto a blog post, I want to be instantly hooked to it. Otherwise, I'm just going to abandon it, I'm going to close the window, and I'm going to go to a competitor's website. So make sure that you have a compelling hook. How do you create that? You address the readers, again, objections and challenges very head on. For example, if the blog topic says how to make viral YouTube shorts, you can't say that, oh, you want to create viral YouTube shorts, that's why you've come here. That's not the best opening statement for a blog. You have to add a little bit of more context. You might as well write that, uh, you know you've already uploaded some videos, and you've already uploaded some YouTube shorts, watched videos around how to make it viral, but you're still not uh, hitting that mark or driving income like your favorite content creators. Now that strikes a better chord with me than saying, oh, you've tried YouTube shorts, go viral, but then that's not happening for you. So you need to have that sort of empathy also when you're addressing your clients' objections. You can't just keep on poking their challenges and their pain points. You need to very subtly hint them that, hey, we know that you're struggling with this, and this, we're here to help you solve this. So the next part is clearly highlight your target audience's pain points. Now, go over to your research and start jotting down excerpts. Now, here is when you narrow down your research and when you actually start filling in the gaps, and when you start writing your first actual draft, then address the gaps in your competitors' articles. For example, if there is an article with, top 10, um, let's say, video conferencing tools, it has Zoom, it has Google Meet, it has Loom, and etc., etc. Look at those articles. What are they missing? Is there a table that you could add? Is there like a pros and cons table that you had? This is what me and Anshul, we were discussing. This is like a content delight element. Give your audience, give your readers something that they're not expecting. Give them an infographic. If your guide is very long, it's 4,000, 5,000 words, give them a quick infographic which is very visually nice to see. And instead of reading that 5,000 guide, if the reader wants to grab that infographic and just run with it, give them that option. Don't, you know, box them into this one text heavy sort of asset. Give them templates, give them infographics, give them checklists, or pros and cons, tables, calculators. All of these are content delight elements that might take a little bit more resources to create, that might involve design team. If you're creating a calculator, god, that would include the engineering team sometimes, but that's all worth it. So address the gaps in your competitors' articles. Then again, add examples, real life case studies, and data points from own resources. Then we have address the underlying challenge time and again. And then finally, don't make your conclusion boring, add highlights, takeaways, and more. Because most of the times, what people do in conclusions is they just collate whatever they've written above and they just write, hey, please sign up, please try our product. That's the most boring way you could conclude an article, because it doesn't say anything. Imagine, let's hypothetically imagine that you wrote a 4,000 word guide. I am the good target audience that you're targeting, and I stick through till the end, from the beginning to the end. And in the conclusion, after investing so much of time, what would I expect? Now, obviously, I can retain some information, but I might forget, like, 2 out of 5 points. So just give me a quick highlight, give me a quick takeaway. If you're comparing, let's say 10, if you're writing an article that says top 10 websites to record your video, top 10 tools to record your video, give me 2 to 3 best tools and segregate them. That if you're budget conscious, if you're a beginner, maybe try this free tool. If you're an advanced editor, if you want to record something very complex and it's a very, very long video, or let's say if you want to host a webinar and there are like, uh, 54 people here, and you want to present also and do all these sort of things, then this is the best tool for that. Help me make a decision. Whatever your topic is, give me a definitive answer towards the end conclusion. Don't leave it open ended that, oh, now you've read the article, now you take a decision. Help me with these directional cues. That'll definitely improve the overall feel of the article, and it will also make your reader feel so comfortable and confident, because now they know that this is a good research, this is a good resource, and it helped me make my decision. Now, the next is let your first draft breathe. I know a lot of people get into editing head first. I don't, because I know that I'm writing my own article. So I have a lot of bias because I've spent like 10 hours researching around a certain point. So I might as well be a little biased and not remove some fluffy parts that I might have, unintentionally added there. So I let my first draft breathe. Then comes the self editing part, where you check the formatting, capitalization, all the subheadings. If you have a larger paragraph, break it into bullet points. Larger section, break it into 2 sections. Keyword optimization, which all the information that you get from your editor. Minimum is A- score on ClearScope. ClearScope is a writing tool, which we'll get to towards like the end of the presentation. Now, make sure that you have keywords in all the right places. You have all the internal and external links that your editor or client asked for. And then the final stage is proofreading. Is there any word longer than 25 words? You can actually use a tool called Hemingway Editor to, break longer sentences into shorter ones. So, are there any walls of text with visuals that you can break up with visuals? Do that before you send it to your editor. Now, this is an example. This is an article that I wrote for Weed. See, you have short sentences here. All of them are very short sentences. You have bullet points. You have internal links, external links, and the content delight element that I was talking about. I've added what our competitors were doing on this topic were they were just saying that they were just, writing these reviews of this, for example, Weed, then 4 paragraphs, then some other tool, then 4 paragraphs, then another tool, 4 paragraphs. It was just walls of text and screenshots of their homepage. As a reader, I don't want to invest so much of mental energy into, reviewing everything, and I'm not going to remember and retain all that information. But what I can remember is these pros and cons. So this content delight element will actually amp up the uniqueness and originality of your blog post or whatever content asset that you're creating. Now, how to drive results from your writing. This is the MQL part that we spoke about earlier. Now, results could be in terms of SEO, Results could be in terms of, MQLs or results. And there are multiple ways you can ensure that your writing drives value for your client. For example, when it comes to SEO competitiveness and funnel stage, if you're writing a bottom of funnel content, the goal is to drive paid signups. The goal is that the reader clicks on the call to action button there. So you need to ace the product positioning so well that your product is naturally imbibed into the content throughout without sounding salesy or pushy. For example, if you're writing a statement that, hey, um, creating a video is hard, it's challenging, you need to get this right, you need to know how to edit, but you might not have the resources to edit a video, hire a video editor, then you could try out, this XYZ product. Instead of just saying that, hey, buy our product, you could very well imbibe that product positioning into the content very seamlessly. You could also address objections the right way. Again, going back, instead of poking the customer's pain points, address their objections very subtly. And as you do that, as you inject more social proof, more customer success stories, more testimonials, and that you combine all of that and put it into your content assets, bake it into that, it builds trust with your audience, because then your audience knows that, hey, they have helped like 5,000 other people, they could help me too, right? So, and then add natural call to action buttons. Again, what we said, like, try it now, but then it could be inline CTA text. Instead of having like a big red colored button, just having an inline CTA, or have a banner in the middle of the article, or have a banner towards the end of the article. But I would say it's very important that you have CTAs in multiple places and not just towards the end, because again, how many people do actually stick to the end as a reader? And next is the distribution and promotion package. If it's a bottom of funnel asset, I would say make sure that you have a chat with your client, that how are we going to distribute this? How are we going to promote this out? Because, and actually, this is not just true for bottom of funnel, but for all funnel stages, whatever, regardless of the funnel stage of the content that you're creating, if you don't distribute it, if you don't promote it, how would draw prospects towards the content asset itself? So make sure you have this conversation, turn your blog posts into small mini case studies, small social posts, small newsletters, and then this all of this combined, have UTM tags in different places. This is also one of the things that I've learned very late in my career, that having UTM tags, by doing that, you can actually track the exact number of clicks that a specific CTA button is having. So you know that, okay, this is the blog post that I wrote, and these many people clicked on the get a demo or free trial or whatever the CTA is. So ask your client, do we have UTM tags? Do we have a tool to add that? If not, can we do that? Are you open to that? Do this. Now, the next thing I wanted to get into is I've written for both. I've actively written for Asia Pacific audience, which is India, Australia, and APAC and SEA, basically the Middle East. And I'm also written for the North American audience very, very extensively. Now, there's a lot of difference between these two audiences. How? So here are two screenshots from the introduction. Now, the first is written for North American audience. It's a B2B, it's a B2C SaaS company, middle of funnel blog, target audiences, content creators. Now, for APAC, it's B2B SaaS, bottom of funnel, performance marketers. Just look at the tone of voice and the language I've used for both of these introductions. Well, the first sounds very casual and conversational, and it also depends heavily on the target audience. The second one, again, since it's addressing performance marketers, it's very formal, yet it's very authoritative. So this subtle difference between the kind of language that you use, the grammar, the tone that you use. For example, in the first introduction, if you see, I've started a sentence with "and." Technically, in English, this is not correct. You should not use start a sentence with words like "because," "and." But then I have, and this is a published screenshot. Why? Because Now the focus for, at least for North American audience, is to create content that sounds more human like, because there's this wave of AI generated content, and they want to make it as conversational as human like, and it's okay. So uh, it, it sounds like at the expense of grammar, but it also builds that ease with the reader. It also gives that sort of comfort to the reader. But when you look at APAC, every sentence is very, very technically correct. There is no statement that starts with and, with because, and it's very to the point. It's very crisp. It directly addresses the objections head on. So these are the small nuggets and small different elements that separate the US writing from the APAC writing. This is another example. This is a page out of my newsletter. Again, I start my newsletter with a very casual, update of what I did over the weekend or over the past week. Happy Monday, blah blah blah. And then I have some gifs, memes, or personal designs. This is also because of the fact that it's my personal newsletter, but it's also geared towards US marketers. My target audience is US based marketers. So I have that liberty and flexibility to extend that and actually use GIFs, memes. Another difference between APAC and North America writing are these four things. Seasonal activities and festivals. For example, if you're in India, you know that almost from August to December, we have these insane, festivals going on. Our family is there. We're taking so many leaves. We're eating so much food, and we're going out for shopping and family lavish dinners and whatnot. But then for the North American region, there are two or three major festivals that happen. One would be Halloween, then would be Easter, and then would be Christmas, right? So our shopping habits also change. Our seasonal activities and festivals also change. So, for example, if I was writing for a Martech B2B SaaS enterprise company, and their audience, their customers were performance marketers of e-commerce companies. So, for example, I was writing for the APAC and CR region. Now I know that from August to December is where e-commerce go bullish on marketing campaign sale discount. You have, Amazon running Great Indian Festival sale. You have Flipkart running Big Billion sales. That is when sales go up, and that is when consumers become very, very active shoppers. So this is a pattern. This is a trend that is specific to India itself. So these are the small observational, again, psychographic elements that shape the way you write content. Then again, buying habits and psychology. Now, it's a very interesting fact is that again, there was an article that I was writing for the Australian consumer base, and surprisingly, they prefer shopping on their desktops more than mobile phones. Now, this is not true in India, because in India, using a mobile is second nature to us. We're watching, IPL, we're watching something on the TV, and we use mobiles like it's just a natural thing for us now. It's natural for us to shop. But then for the Australian market, for the longest time, their primary channel is desktop. So these are the small things that research, as and when you research, you get to know. Then you have grammar and flow transition. Of course, the grammar and flow, I already discussed it with the and because, and that changes. And also in British and American English, you have this thing about S and Z. So these are the changes. Now, how to use AI in your writing process. Before we actually get into this, I want to just say this out loud, that I know that a lot of people think that AI is going to replace writers, or it's a lot of companies are hiring using AI tools to write content. I absolutely don't agree with it, because the kind of first-hand perspective experiences, the kind of research that we can do as humans is irreplaceable. But what AI is incredibly good at is being an assistant. So instead of thinking of it as your replacement and thinking that, hey, it's going to grab up my clients, because trust me, if a company is using AI to bulk produce 100 blogs a month, and they don't respect content, and they don't understand the role of content in their marketing pipeline, as a good writer, as somebody who's an ambitious writer who really wants to make a mark in the marketing, in the writing industry, would you really want to prefer working with a brand who doesn't understand the value that you bring to the table? I think not. So, instead of thinking of AI as your competitor, or as as a problem, use it as an assistant. It's an excellent assistant. I use AI all the time now, and I am very happy with using tools that have, AI features, because it just helps me save time and do my tasks faster. For example, ask AI to elaborate on objections or problem statement. Go to ChatGPT, the free version. I don't have a pro version because I think the free version is pretty cool and you can use it. You can use it pretty extensively. So go to ChatGPT, write a prompt that says problem statement. Imagine you are a product marketer and you are struggling with this, the pain points that you have collected from your research. Ask it to give more context behind it, explain more it. And if you have, add any research studies or academic papers that there are present. ChatGPT will do that in a second. Instead of you going to 100 different blogs and trying to understand what is the context between all of these pain points. If you're new to writing a certain niche, ask ChatGPT to do it. It'll help you. Of course, you have to go and validate those pain points and those contexts, but it's easier, it's faster. Second would be to generate questions for SME interviews. Once you have the primary topics, ask it to give you 10 more sub questions. Ask it to segue into five different ways. Ask it to generate questions in bulk and then sort and sift through them, pick out the best and use them. Ask for phrases and metaphors to add that extra punch, because if you're writing for a North American audience, trust me, you would want to have a lot of phrases and metaphors there to sound more relatable, to build that connection with the audience. Ask ChatGPT to do that. Why do you have to struggle with that? Format and structure content easily. You want to format something, you want to change a paragraph into bullet points. I just plug my paragraph into ChatGPT, ask it to put it into bullet points, and it does it within a second. If you want to modify the language and tone of your content, you can do that. This is a little bit risky because it will, more often than not, it will rewrite your content and it will rephrase it. So keep an eye on that. But otherwise, if you want to quickly change the tone of your content, let's say you're repurposing a blog post into a social media post, ask ChatGPT to do it. It'll do it way faster. Now, the best tools I recommend are the following: a Grammar Hemingway editor, and Grammarly. I have the Grammarly Chrome extension on my laptop. I use it all the time. Then you have ClearScope. Then for note taking, I use my laptop notes, Google Docs, and Notion. I know it's not a good practice to have your notes and everything spread across different tools, but I have that, I do that. Then you have AI tools, ChatGPT. WordTune is also pretty good. WordTune gives you a couple of free prompts. After that, it asks you to up your subscription. But I think there's a daily limit of 10 prompts or something like that. You can try for yourself. Jasper is also pretty cool. Video recording, Auto.ai. Use it when you're interviewing subject matter expert. Record your conversations, because this is a big mistake that I did. I used to never record these calls and conversations because I always felt, what if this adds that discomfort to the conversation to the other person on the end. So take their consent beforehand. When you're sending the mail, when you're sending the link of the Zoom call, Google Meet, whatever, wherever you're hosting the call, just tell them that, hey, this is going to be a recorded session, just so that, just for research purposes, and the content team can go back to points, to questions, and to get the key takeaways quickly. So do that. Auto AI will actually uh, take out the entire script. So if you remember, let's say, a certain part, a certain keyword that your subject matter expert said. Let's say that person said revenue optimization. Some I just thought of a smart keyword. So let's say that person said revenue optimization. In Auto.ai, you just control find that keyword, and it'll take you to the exact script where they said it. Hit play, and you will get the entire context behind that keyword, that, oh, this is what they said. V.io is an amazing tool for video editing. I use it all the time for hosting podcasts and recording my own clips. Loom is amazing for writers, especially if you have questions for your editors. Because I think async is the way to go forward, instead of the dreaded, hey, are you up for a quick call? We can always rely on Loom, ask our questions, or give feedback if you think that the brief could be a little bit more comprehensive, a little bit more better. You have an idea all of a sudden for a content delight element, that, hey, can we add a checklist? just record a quick Loom video. It's free, again, for I think certain limits. Record it, send it to your editor, and they'll reply you back. Trust me, they'll be more happy when you send a Loom instead of you sending a let's set up a quick call. So this is my entire tech stack, and I think with that we have wrapped up the session. Oh my god, it overshot by 20 minutes. But I'm
But it was so value add on, Arushi. There's so many things. I'll be honest. I think when we used to talk about research, and I remember the conversation. I mean, so much content around how branding does
Mhm.
that, and the 10x content, and all of that. And when people try to just look up the top 10 articles and do their research, I think with the insight that you've shared, there's so much more, right? That we'll have that going further as well. So many value adds for the writers as well. So thanks everyone for joining in. Will not take a lot of time. What I'll do is, I just wanted to, just conclude the session. Thank everyone, and we'll be also sending across a quick recording for this session today that we have had here. Actually, so many insights, right? I mean, there's so many interesting talk. You shared the entire process of how you also went through the usual, on a writing process, because it just gives a very clear, sort of a head start for people also thinking about the entire content creation as well, right? And it gives a very clear mental model for people to get started, right? Arushi, thanks again for this. Just wanted to share a small gratitude from our side that at Vidipen we partnered with a organization called Sankalp Taru. What Sankalp Taru does is they plant trees on your behalf, and they genuinely do that. It was started by one of the first facilitators was Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam, our ex-president. What they do is they pick up the locations where they have to go back and support the rural livelihood, and they plant trees there, right? So on your behalf, for the efforts to come here, we have just contributed to Sankalp Taru to plant a tree on your behalf. They're going to take care of it for another year, and our team at Vidipen will also share a scanner with you so that you can go back and review the status of that particular plant as well across the year, right? So Archie, it was really great having you here, and talking about the entire insight. You've had an awesome journey. I'm sure the audience also in the entire session took away a lot out of it as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's so wonderful to have like a little sapling, and then I can just imagine, because I do a lot of home gardening, I do a lot of kitchen gardening, took it after my mother. So I have all these small vegetables growing in my garden. So I think it's amazing. And I am also associated with, I try and donate a lot for street animals, specifically, dogs and cows and goats and like all the
Wonderful.
street animals. So I am very, very active in that direction. But it was a wonderful conversation, and I'm so happy that so many people joined in, and they actually stuck through till the very end, because I
Yes.
see very few people were moving. Otherwise, we had a very consistent number
It's
of
all across.
attendees.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think the only ones who dropped off were like, okay, okay, fine, we'll get the recording later on. So, but I love the spirit. I love how people were here, because that sort of creates a very clear intent that you want to grow, and you want to grow your skill set and career as a freelance writer. On that note, just to share, folks who are new at Vidipen, we work with writers. We've got more than 1,600 writers who are working with us. We help them get content projects to multiple writers. Just have a look at vidipin.com, go to the writers page, and you'll have a application process from there as well. On that note, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining in. Thanks Arushi for being
Thank you.
here and hosting this lovely session with all of us.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Anshul. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Thank you.